Hey, good morning, eighth grade remote learners on this, looks like it'll be a sunny Monday. The sun's not quite up, so we'll have to see. Um, Today we're actually going to talk a little bit about telling time. And I'm sure you all know how to tell time, but sometimes in a historic sense, we deal with centuries, right? So when we talk about a century, that's a period of 100 years, right? Decades, a period of 10 years, a century is a period of 100 years, a millennium is 1,000 years. Anyway, century. But what gets a little bit confusing about centuries is that, for instance, right now the year is 2020, but we're in the 21st century, right? So our date starts with a 20, but our century is the 21st century. So I want to just explain why exactly that is. And then the Google Doc that I've attached, I've given you about 10 different events in world history. And what you're going to have to do is take the little description that I gave, do a little bit of gentle research, as I would call it. Tell me what year it took place in, and then tell me what the corresponding century is. So obviously there'll be very much a pattern that develops because whatever the date is, let's say it was 1850, the century would be the 19th. So if it's the year 2020, it's the 21st century. But I want to take a minute to explain why exactly that is after I fix my shirt here. There we go. So a century, we can all take a look, is a period of 100 years. Okay, so we've got year 1 to year 100, 100, 200, 200 to 300. So we'd all agree that because this is a period of 100 years, this is the first century, right? Makes sense. And that this would be the second century and the third century. And if we went all the way down here, we would be in the 5th century, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But here's where the confusion can kind of kick in just a little bit, is that the first period of 100 years, second. So even though this all the way down here is the 5th period of 100 years, let's take a look at a year that actually exists within the 5th century. So let's go right in the middle. We'll go right in the middle. We'll notice that the year for that would be 450. So the year 450 would actually exist within the 5th century. So that's why when you deal with centuries and when you deal with years, you're always going to be one off. So, the first shots of the Civil War were fired April 12th, 1861. Well, even though it's 1861, it would be the 19th century for the reasons I've explained here. If you took a date within the 3rd century, let's pretend we're going to the year 222, 222. So it exists within the 3rd century, even though the number starts with a 200. Okay. So therefore, that would give us to 2020 would be in the 21st century. And who knows? Where you guys were born, it's likely that somebody in the current 8th grade would live to see the 22nd century. I'd have to be 117 years old, so it's pretty unlikely for me. But that is how we keep track of centuries. Now, I don't necessarily need you to go back and forth. Like, I'm never going to ask for a date to be like, you need to say it in centuries as opposed to hundreds. But when I'm speaking and I toggle back and forth between saying, say, 1863 and you need to know that that's in the 19th century, because sometimes I'll speak going back and forth. And sometimes, your history text or video might do the same thing. So that's a little bit of an explanation about centuries and how those correspond to the years that we count. So take a look at the Google Doc that I've attached, and that is your Google Classroom remote assignment for the day. I hope you guys have a great Monday. Hopefully you've warmed up a little bit. I know walking the dog this morning was a little bit chilly, but hope you guys have a good day. Bye.